Welcome back. It's, yes, the big board again. There's no getting rid of me, not yet anyway. Let's see. How to attack Arras, depending on how you, maybe it's Arras. Who knows? Who knows what the correct way to say that fabulous word is? Battles Magazine number 2. Back in the early days of Battle Magazine games where the counters were thin and angry, and the map art was, not bad. So there you go. Here we are in an area movement game, written or designed by Mike Ranella, who has been around forever, designed a lot of different games. I don't have very strong opinions of Mike's work. I've probably played a fair few of his games, but I can't recall off the top of my head many that I could tell you, right? This is an area movement game. It's set around the 21st of May. It's literally, let's see, it is in fact just on the day of 21st of May 1940. So it's the British attempt to stem the tide of the German invasion of France. And it's sort of all bets are off. It's this or run to Dunkirk type of deal. Now, the game immediately feels to me, after reading the rules, very much like the Stormover series, but no cards. And it's perhaps a little, if anything, it's a little simpler. And it's obviously a fairly abstract game. And so far, I'm only on turn 2, but so far it's a bit of a beatdown for the Germans, and there's lots of bits dying. So we've had some death and mayhem over here. So I thought what I'd do is just run through a combat so you can see how a combat works, and hopefully someone who has played this game can comment and go, Kevin, you're an idiot. You're not playing it correctly, because I'm a little surprised at how easy it is to be removing counters from the board. So let's walk through this bad boy here and see what happens. And we can talk about the victory conditions and all that sort of stuff some other time. Let's just have a look at combat, because that's really the meat of the game here. And we'll talk about movement and other stuff as well. But necessarily, your forces are in these areas. You can have up to 10 units in an area, and for both sides, by the way. So one movement point to here. It's actually going to be, you know what? So there's the first mistake we've potentially made. I don't believe we have enough movement points to go boom boom to here like this, because moving adjacent to an area that has fresh units, when you're spent, you're flipped over, which is kind of a pain in the ass to flip all these skinny counters over. So I'm going to be cocking them to one side. But let me just check that. Enter an area that only contains spent. Enter an area. No, that's entering an area. We want to move adjacent to an area that contains. Blah, 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 blah. It's 2. So these guys wouldn't be able to make it in here. That's going to be the challenge that these folks will face. It's 4 movement points to move into an area that has fresh units. It's going to be enter an area that contains no enemy units, but which is adjacent to an uncontested area containing a fresh unit is 2. So it would be 2 to here, 7 to here. They can't make it. So that's going to change the combat significantly. I keep forgetting that, and I keep forgetting that it's 1. It's not 1. It's more than 1 to do that. Did the same thing over on this side of the map, but we corrected it and got it right. You moved units from here and here. They were adjacent, fortunately enough. But then as we moved other units, it was actually over here where I made the mistake. I think there were some enemy units here, and so we moved too far and had to adjust our combat, and it ended up being rather nasty for the British. They had to retreat. In fact, they lost a unit. So let's just run through this combat now, even though it's going to be suboptimal. Let's do that. And in fact, what I would have done, knowing that, is I would have moved these other units into here first, and I'll show you, or some of them anyway. I'll show you why in a sec, because we'll see probably what this result will end up in. Defensive factors 2, 4, 6, 8 here, right? I think I got that written down here somewhere. 8 factors. And then I've got 7 factors and another 8 factors for 15 factors. So it's going to be 8 defense plus 1 for the terrain, 9 defense. So now there'll be a delta, you just subtract one from the other, of +6 for the attacker. Now I could use an air unit, and I will in fact use an air unit, but, oh, actually I don't get them yet, so I could. But even if I could, there are no rules for them. There are rules for them, but not how many dice you add to the combat or what that combat support does. I assume it's the same as artillery support, which is also unclear. Nevertheless, here we go. So we're going to roll 2d6 for both sides, and I'm rolling 6 for the Germans, and only a measly 4, but that will be enough for the Allies. And we're going to add those two numbers to each side's total. So it's going to bring them up to 90, Allies up to 19, and I think these guys up to 15. It's going to be a +4 difference. I've got to lose 4 thingamajiggies. Let's just call them thingamajiggies, because there's a combat results table that's in the rules but not on a chart or anywhere else that we can read, but there's a chart, and I'm going to scoot this back out and try and show it to you. Let me just fold the rule over so we can see it. All right, here. So the delta, the casualty points that you accumulated, which we said were 4, I could eliminate a fresh unit for 5. I could flip to spent for 2, and I can eliminate a spent for 2, or I can retreat for 2. So I've got to lose 4, right? So it's actually a nice little combat to show a balanced combat as opposed to what was going to happen. We'll talk about that in a sec. So what I can do is just flip 2. So can I flip the HQ? I think I can. Let's flip the HQ, and we'll flip this guy down to a 2. And that's going to solve the combat for us. Now these guys are also going to be spent. They will flip, but I don't believe these guys will be flipped, based on what I've read. So that was that combat, trying to come in around the flank side here, capturing these areas. We get bonus victory points, I believe. I think it's 2 instead of 1, something like that. Now, if we had have had these additional units here, and they were involved in the combat, that'd be another 13 combat factors, which, let's assume we had the same die roll. We would have immediately had 13 plus, what did I say, 4? 17 that we need to lose. So only way you're going to do that is by eliminating units, and that would have taken 5, 10, 15, 20, because you've got to lose at least the minimum. So we would have, all those chaps potentially would have been eliminated. There may have been some other options in there. We could have maybe ended up retreating 1, but 15, we could have maybe retreated 1, or made 1 spent for 2 to give it the 17 or whatever we needed. So that would have been pretty devastating. So when you can mass forces here, and given the die spread, right, 2d6 opposed 2d6, it can be pretty significant. The very first attack I did, the Allies rolled 2 and the defenders rolled 12. So that was a bit of a snafu for the Allies. So it's pretty interesting little combat system, obviously very light, obviously very abstract. Don't know if it reflects the situation accurately or not. We're just going to have to see and wait until we get a little further into it and how the game sort of pans out. Let's see. So I mentioned briefly the combat where we could see, sorry, not the combat, the movement where we could see that entering areas, entering zones will have different costs based on who's adjacent and whether they're spent or fresh, etc. And also obviously trying to enter into zones that have enemy units, there are different costs for those as well. So we've got 2, 4, 5 more turns to go. We'll talk to you soon. We'll give you a little update in just a bit. Current tally at the moment is 9 VPs for the Allies. And I think they either need, do they need 20? Let's see, just very quickly. Yeah, I can't see it here on the rules. It's here somewhere. Ally player receives additional VP if he controls at least 2 areas. That's circled in red. Oh, I've got to have 10 or more by the end of turn 2100, which is turn 7. So, we're well on our way to securing a victory. And now it's going to be, can the Germans, are they going to have the capacity with some of the reinforcements they have coming in? There's, I think, 7th Panzer over here. Or 31st Division, 35th. Oh, no, yeah, this is 7th Panzer and 5th Panzer. Sorry, that's a regiment number. 7th Panzer and 5th Panzer over there. When they hit the board, they'll probably come in and start hurting some folks. And I think that's what happened traditionally. I also have another title on this topic. Unfortunately, it's in the Death Ride Kursk system, and it's adapted to a different time scale as well. And I think also a different ground scale, but we're going to see how that works out. That may not happen next, but it will happen at some point, and we'll do a little bit of comparison between the two. Obviously, two very, very different systems. One's a hyper-detailed or attempting to be hyper-detailed, and this is obviously a very abstract representation, and it's going to be a nice, light, fast-playing game. I bet you get this sucker done in an hour and a half maybe, if you kind of got focused on it. We'll see. All the best.